Matilda came out in 1996 and instantly became one of the most beloved family films of an entire generation. But the real lives of the people behind those characters turned out to be every bit as dramatic, surprising, and compelling as the movie itself. Here is where they all ended up. Number 1, we have Danny DeVito as Mr. Wormwood and narrator. Mr. Wormwood was the loud, crooked, gloriously selfish car salesman who completely missed the fact that his own daughter was a genius. And Danny DeVito played every oblivious, blustering moment with a comic energy that made him utterly irresistible on screen. He also directed the film and narrated it, making Matilda one of the most personal projects of his entire career. He was 51 years old when the movie released in 1996. Today, in 2026, Danny DeVito is 81 years old, and he has not slowed down even slightly. He has continued working across film, television, and stage with remarkable energy, most notably keeping his iconic role as Frank Reynolds alive on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia since 2006. On the personal side, he and Ria Pearlman, his co-star in this very film, were married for decades before officially separating, though their relationship has remained famously complicated, deeply intertwined, and endlessly discussed by Hollywood insiders and fans alike. Number 2, we have Pam Ferris as Miss Trunchbull. Miss Trunchbull was one of the greatest screen villains of the entire 1990s, a terrifying, hammer-throwing, child-hurling headmistress who seemed genuinely dangerous in every single frame. And Pam Ferris disappeared into that role so completely that audiences almost forgot there was a real human being underneath all that menace. She was 47 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, a British actress whose stage background had already given her impressive range well before Hollywood came calling. Now, in 2026, Pam Ferris is 77 years old, and looking back at her career, the distance between Trunchbull and her other beloved roles is almost breathtaking. She built an equally warm reputation playing Ma Larkin in The Darling Buds of May, and later Sister Evangelina in Call the Midwife. Two roles radiating a humanity that seems almost impossible to square with the monster she played in this film. The physical commitment she brought to Trunchbull remains extraordinary 30 years later. Number 3, we have Paul Reubens as the FBI agent. The FBI agent was a small role, but when Paul Reubens walks into any scene, on small stops meaning what it normally means. He appeared briefly in Matilda in 1996 as one of the bumbling federal agents tailing the Wormwood family, bringing his unmistakable energy to every second of screen time he had. He was 43 years old when the film came out, at a point in his career where he was carefully rebuilding his public image following a very public personal scandal in 1991 that had temporarily derailed everything. That rebuilding worked. He successfully re-established himself through the 1990s and 2000s, returning to Pee Wee Herman multiple times and earning genuine critical appreciation for dramatic work in Blow and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sadly, Paul Reubens never made it to 2026. He passed away on July 30th, 2023, at the age of 70, after a private battle with cancer, a loss that hit an entire generation of devoted fans deeply and completely unexpectedly. Number 4, we have Embeth Davids as Miss Honey. Miss Honey was the gentle, quietly courageous teacher who saw Matilda for exactly who she was, and Embeth Davids brought such genuine warmth and understated grace to the role that she became the emotional heart of the entire film. She was just 29 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, a South African-born actress who had already turned serious heads with her powerful performance in Schindler's List 3 years earlier. Now in 2026, Embeth Davids is 59 years old, and her career since Miss Honey has demonstrated a range that very few actresses of her generation have matched. She appeared in Army of Darkness, Bridget Jones's Diary, and The Amazing Spider-Man, moving comfortably between intimate drama and major studio productions throughout. On the personal side, she married director Andy Tennant, and the couple had children together before eventually separating. She has remained consistently selective about her roles, always prioritizing quality over volume in a way that has kept her reputation firmly and deservedly intact. Number 5, we have Ria Pearlman as Mrs. Wormwood. Mrs. Wormwood was the bleach-blonde, television-obsessed, bingo-addicted mother who treated her extraordinary daughter like a minor inconvenience. And Ria Pearlman played every magnificently shallow moment with a comic timing that made the character both infuriating and genuinely funny simultaneously. She was 48 years old when Matilda hit theaters in 1996, already one of the most recognizable faces in American television, thanks to her legendary run as Carla on Cheers, a role that earned her 4 Emmy Awards across 11 seasons. Now in 2026, Ria Pearlman is 77 years old, still sharp, still working, and still carrying one of the most decorated comedic resumes in television history. Working opposite Danny DeVito and Matilda was hardly unfamiliar territory since the two were married in real life for decades, giving their on-screen dysfunction a very particular kind of natural chemistry. Their long on-and-off relationship has remained one of Hollywood's most endlessly fascinating and complicated love stories, discussed and dissected for decades. Number 6. We have Tracy Walter as the FBI agent. Our Tracy Walter played the second half of the bumbling FBI agent duo alongside Paul Reubens. And while the role was brief, he brought exactly the kind of deadpan character work that has made him one of Hollywood's most quietly indispensable supporting actors across 4 decades. He was 49 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, already carrying a remarkable list of credits that included Batman, Repo Man, and Silence of the Lambs, a resume that said everything about the caliber of directors who kept coming back to him. Now in 2026, Tracy Walter is 79 years old, and he is still that same quietly irreplaceable presence that casting directors have relied on for generations. His particular gift has always been making the smallest role feel completely specific and fully inhabited, something audiences feel even when they cannot quite identify why a scene works as well as it does. Since Matilda, he has continued accumulating credits without ever once chasing the spotlight, which is entirely in keeping with everything he has always been. Number 7, we have Brian Levenson as Michael Wormwood. Michael was Matilda's older brother, a couch-slouching, television-glazed teenager who inherited every single one of his parents' worst qualities and seemed perfectly content about it. Our Brian Levenson played him with a wonderfully vacant ease that made Michael feel completely believable as a Wormwood. He was just 11 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, a young actor who had already picked up television experience before landing the role. Now in 2026, Brian Levenson is 40 years old, and his path since that colorful Wormwood household has been a quiet one. He stepped away from acting fairly early and built a private life well outside the entertainment industry, rarely surfacing in cast reunion discussions or Hollywood circles. Very little is publicly known about where his adult years have taken him, making him one of the more genuinely mysterious figures connected to a film that has remained so enduringly visible for 30 years. Number 8, we have Cayami Davel as Lavender. Lavender was Matilda's spirited, a fiercely loyal best friend, the girl brave enough to drop a newt into Miss Trunchbull's water jug without flinching. And Cayami Davel brought a spark and natural confidence to the role that made her an instant fan favorite. She was around 10 years old when Matilda hit theaters in 1996, a young performer who held her own effortlessly alongside far more experienced adult actors throughout the entire production. Now, in 2026, Cayami Davel is around 40 years old, and like several of her young co-stars, she stepped away from the entertainment industry after her childhood acting years gradually wound down. She has lived a notably private adult life, rarely engaging with the public attention that still surrounds the film. Matilda's enduring popularity means that Lavender remains a character people genuinely remember and ask about, which makes Cayami's quiet disappearance from public view all the more intriguing to longtime fans of the film. Number 9. We have Jean Spiegel Howard as Miss Phelps. Miss Phelps was the warm, wonderfully encouraging librarian who welcomed young Matilda with open arms and an endless supply of books, a small but deeply important role that gave the film one of its most genuinely tender moments. Jean Spiegel Howard played her with a natural, gracious kindness that felt completely unforced on screen. She was 73 years old when Matilda was filmed, bringing decades of quiet theatrical experience to a role that required every ounce of that warmth. Off-screen, she carried a remarkable personal connection to Hollywood. She was the mother of director Ron Howard and actress-producer Bryce Dallas Howard, making her part of one of the entertainment industry's most accomplished family legacies. Matilda turned out to be one of her final screen appearances. Jean Spiegel Howard passed away on year of the film's release in 1996, at the age of 73, leaving behind a brief but genuinely lovely performance that Matilda fans have treasured ever since. Number 10. We have R.D. Robb as Roy. Roy was one of the Wormwood family's peripheral associates, a small supporting role that sat comfortably within the film's broader comedic world without ever demanding too much screen time. R.D. Robb brought his usual easy naturalism to the part, the kind of performance that holds a scene together without ever drawing attention away from the leads. He was around 24 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, a young actor already building his Hollywood resume through a series of supporting appearances across film and television. He is perhaps best remembered by fans of 1980s cinema for his role as Schwartz in the perennial holiday classic A Christmas Story, a film that has aired so consistently every December that his face became genuinely familiar to multiple generations of viewers. Now in 2026, R.D. Robb is around 54 years old. He has continued working in the entertainment industry across various projects, maintaining an active presence without ever particularly seeking major spotlight roles. Number 11. We have Jacqueline Stiger as Amanda Thripp. Amanda Thripp had one of the most memorable moments in the entire film, the pigtailed girl who Miss Trunchbull grabbed and hurled through the air like a human hammer throw. And Jacqueline Stiger played that unforgettable scene with exactly the right combination of terror and comic timing. She was around 12 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, a young actress who clearly had the courage to commit fully to one of the film's most physically demanding and ridiculous moments. That single scene has given her a kind of immortality among fans of the film. The Amanda Thripp pigtail moment is one that people who saw Matilda as children never entirely forget. Now in 2026, Jacqueline Stiger is around 42 years old. Like several of her young co-stars from the film, she stepped away from acting as she moved into adulthood and has maintained a private life largely away from the public eye and Hollywood circles since. Number 12, we have Mara Wilson as Matilda. Matilda Wormwood was a girl who taught herself to read at 3, devoured entire libraries before starting school, and moved objects with the power of her mind. And Mara Wilson played every single moment of that extraordinary childhood with a quiet, a luminous intelligence that made the character feel completely real, rather than fantastical. She was just 8 years old when Matilda was released in 1996, already a seasoned young actress, having previously appeared in Mrs. Doubtfire and Miracle on 34th Street. Now in 2026, Mara Wilson is 38 years old, and her journey since playing the most famous gifted child in film history has been one of the most thoughtful and unexpected reinventions connected to this entire cast. She stepped away from acting in her early teens, openly discussing how the pressures of child stardom had genuinely affected her sense of self and mental well-being. She channeled that experience into writing, building a career as an author and storyteller that has earned her a devoted following entirely separate from anything Matilda ever gave her. She lost her mother to breast cancer during the filming of Matilda, a heartbreak she has spoken about with remarkable openness and grace in the years since. Remember when movie posters weren't just advertisements, they were moments. I've put together a curated collection of over 1,000 legendary 70s, 80s, and 90s movie posters. It's perfect for collectors, nostalgia lovers, and anyone who grew up during the golden era of film. You can grab it right now using the link in the description.